an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Dark, Season 3, Episode 3, Adam and Eva. In this episode, it turns out that those three horrors are working for Martha. And I gotta tell you guys, I have no idea what to make of that. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Michael for commissioning this episode. Guys, I do not know what's going on. And this may sound like a familiar intro because this is about what I said last time. I stand by it. I'm a little bit concerned, to be honest, about the quality of this Spoil Me episode because I have no clue. And I'm just kind of going to have to do a basic recap, I feel like, because I don't really have a lot to contribute because I don't understand what's happening. There's some basic stuff that I get. On a bigger scale, I am starting to be like, this is a show that I'm like, maybe binging would be better. I don't know. I just feel so out of it like it's the sort of feeling where I can't tell if I am just dense. I don't think so. I'm not usually dense, but sometimes I can be. I've been known to miss a thing. That's pretty obvious. Maybe the fact that I've recorded these so far apart is a problem, and that's what's tripping me up. Or am I not supposed to know what's going on, and therefore it makes talking about it a little tricky because that's exactly what the show intends? Or is it supposed to be consumed so quickly that you don't have time to kind of be like, I don't really get it? And I have so completely detached certain characters from the older versions of themselves that when I look at how I commented on something last time and then realize that part of that was directed at the exact same person I am now yelling at about it, it gets very twisty. And I know that's the point, but I just want everybody to know I'm going to try my best. And if it's not great, I'm really sorry. I do try. I really do. Y'all know that. But this is like probably out of everything that I have ever covered, one of the shows that I feel the least confident about my coverage of, you know? So I just forgive me. Just everybody be nice to me. Okay. So this episode's called Adam and Eva. And just to start things off, I typed Adam and Eve on the Crowdcast, so I'm going to have to correct that. And there is an opening that is even further back in time. I don't know if they tell us exactly what year. I'm going to say that it's like 1820 or something. But this is the child version of Blind Guy, who is the spooky dancing skeleton man. And it's actually a pretty cool opening because they're driving through the forest on this carriage. It's clearly a forest that we have seen before. His father is reading Ariadne, which is the play that Martha was in, that she was doing the monologue from. He is reading it and is wearing a Sigmundus signet ring, and he has, I think, Sigmundus Creatus Est on his cane top, which apparently his son winds up inheriting. So he's reading this play aloud to his son, and clearly the kid's mother has passed away recently. And he asks why people die. And his father says people are never really dead. They might not be here, but that doesn't mean that they're gone. And I don't know why I thought that this was going to turn into we'll see them someday in the afterlife. Heaven's eternal. The man is wearing Sick Moondish shit all over him. Obviously, this is a guy who subscribes to the time theory and not the religion theory. But I still was taken aback when he's like, they live on in the eternity of time. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I'm sure that to you that's comforting. But I gotta tell you, buddy, for this kid who looks like he's like 12 years old, I feel like that's not going to make a huge impression. I don't know that that's comforting. Maybe you want to learn on how to talk to kids a little bit better and work on your bedside manner. And what is so terrible is that you can tell this dude loved his wife. I mean, it's obvious that he really misses her. And we wind up finding out later that he attempted to bring her back to life. Now, how he attempted to do that remains to be seen. I am assuming it has something to do with an attempt at time travel. But maybe it was a Frankenstein thing with electricity. I don't know. He opens his pocket watch as they talk about this kid's mother. And the pocket watch says, "For Charlotte." Now, Charlotte isn't a totally uncommon name. It is completely believable that there was a woman at another time in the same area of Germany that was also named Charlotte. But we are watching a television show where shit is a mess. Can we just say that is the slogan for this show? Shit's a mess. ... Who knows? ? That's our slogan. I feel like this has to be the same Charlotte, because otherwise, really. And honestly, out of everybody on the show, if I'm picking a character that I genuinely like, Charlotte's one of the very few. And I am wondering if her winding up back there, wherever she's at, is a result of what Hannah has decided she wants Alexander to do. We'll get to that fucking scene. And I also wonder if that's part of why his dad is so obsessed with time travel. If she is from the future and she decided to eventually be honest with him and explain that, and he watches her die in his timeline, but is aware that there is a part of her alive in another version of time, I could understand being absolutely consumed with trying to find his way to that place in time to see her again. The thing that's so odd is that if he did go, she wouldn't, it wouldn't make any sense to her at this point, because we have only just started to get to the Charlotte who believes in time travel from Jonas's version of reality. And the one from Marta's version of reality, she still doesn't know what's happening. I think it's starting to begin to occur to her. But I wonder what would be better, not seeing somebody again and having to deal with your grief, or getting to see them again and you mean absolutely nothing to them because they have not in their timeline met you and this has not happened. I feel like that's way worse. This is something that came up in The Time Traveler's Wife, for those of you who have read that. A part of what was so weird about it was that he would run into his wife in other places and she would already know him. But in his timeline, he had not met her yet. This is a thing also in Doctor Who, but the Doctor, is a special case. And it was a little bit difficult for her to see this guy who she knows eventually they're going to be everything to each other. But she also knows that it's like she simply has to be patient here. And she can't necessarily introduce herself. She can't handle it the way you would handle seeing like a normal person. I'm getting ahead of myself as I always do. But yeah, this For Charlotte thing, I was just like, oh my God, what? Really? So we cut from this moment in the past to the modern, and I say modern, meaning 1888, gentleman, sitting in his coach, riding along the same road, it appears, and he has Ariadne in his lap, and there is the sound of an attack outside his carriage. And it was very difficult for me to read his face in this moment. I couldn't tell if he knew what was going on and expected it, or if this was a total shock to him. It was hard for me to decide what his emotional reaction was here. But because I kind of was like, are they coming upon a group of people purposefully to hurt them? The fact is, this dude being involved with anything that says Sigmundus on it, in my opinion, makes it very possible that he is either personally a violent man, blind or no, and or employs violent, ruthless people. But it looks like this dude is not of that type. It looks like this guy is early enough on in the cycle of this time travel discovery and fascination that he has not developed into the kind of person who alleges that the big picture matters more than the details, and then begins to do whatever the fuck he wants with this like lofty claim that his actions are for the greater good, the ends justify the means, yada, yada, yada. And this dude comes in to his carriage, and it is the lone scary of the trio. Mid-scary, as I think of him, because there's young scary, and then there's old scary, and this is mid-scary. And mid-scary comes in and recites a poem. I do not know if this is from Ariadne or what. He that hath eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I do not remember where this is from, but I'm pretty sure we've heard this in this show before. Am I wrong? No. Wait. Yes, we did. The investigator. Right? Fuck, I can't remember his name. The one that got assigned to sort of take over Charlotte's case in Jonas's. Doesn't he say something about this? But he doesn't look like this guy, because I was about to be like, oh my God, is this him? But no, he doesn't have a hair lip. Like, there's no, and we're seeing this guy at 3 different times of life, so kind of all the bases have been covered, and he doesn't resemble him. But I'm wondering if he does have a connection somewhere in there. I feel like he says it to Alexander or something like that. Forgive me, guys. I'm sending Rashawn a text message that I'm covering dark right now because she tends to want to be here for these, but she just texted me about something totally unrelated. So she's definitely free. Yeah, I feel like it was him. I really want to Google it, but I can't because I'm going to pull spoilers up. So yeah, this dude says, I don't understand. And the man says, oh, but you do. You're going to town with a telegram you want to send because you want to tell the world about us. Isn't that so? And this dude is... this was the first moment that I felt any sort of affection towards him. Because, like I said, I have been assuming this dude is nefarious. You know, he's the one that has seemed to provide the backbone for the creation of whatever it is that Adam begins to do. And as such, I assume he's no good. But it seems like he really was attempting something, if not for, like, pure purposes, at least not in an effort to control the world or anything like that. It seems like he was trying to fund a sort of research out of curiosity and interest. And I don't know how much he buys into the we'll make a perfect world, but that feels like less about control and more about, wouldn't this be great for everyone, in a way that feels sincere versus the way that Adam talked about that kind of thing. And it felt like, oh yeah, you're definitely only saying that. But when you talk about, you know, who makes those decisions, it's suddenly magically you and you're the one who controls everything. This guy didn't have that sort of vibe to me. And then this moment where he says, you are one of their kind, a traveler. He has this like, he has a very frightened look on his face, but he's also excited. And says, all those years, they thought my father was insane, but now they are here, the travelers of the future. The world must know that they exist. And he's saying it with reverence. This isn't a dude who... It just doesn't... He's got this sort of like childlike wonder about him that does not feel as sinister as I expected it to be if these two faced off. I thought it was going to be small-time bad guy versus big-time bad guy. And in fact, it feels like small-time bad guy versus doe-eyed hayseed a little bit. Rashawn's here. Hi! So... yeah, this dude pulls out his fucking wire. I hate this wire, man. There have got to be easier, better ways. Why is this what this dude does? Man, I mean, is it just less messy, I guess? He's already covered in blood because of attacking the guy's, like, coach. What would you call him, a footman? Michael says, I Googled it and you're right. We did hear the line about betrayal oozing from every pore from Inspector Clausen. Oh, I feel so proud that I remembered that. It's originally a quote from Freud. Oh, interesting. I wonder if that... I wonder if that is a connection to this guy or if that's like going to be something that winds up getting circulated by like this, because you know there are different sayings and the sic mundus is just a I don't know, I'm going in circles here, but yeah, thank you for looking that up, Michael. I feel very vindicated here. All right, he says everybody needs to know. This guy says what we know is a drop in an ocean. He gets right up in this dude's face, and then we cut to credits and we don't actually see him murder the dude. I am assuming that murder happened, because why wouldn't I? This is not the kind of show in which I'm like, oh, there's no body, they're probably still alive. Honestly, even if they are dead, they're still alive. There's another part of them. There's somebody else, a version of them out there, you know, like it doesn't matter. Nothing matters and all flesh is as grass, as they say. So then we cut to this painting of Adam and Eve. And it says that the title of this episode in English is Adam and Eva. But Eva is how they say Eve in German. So I maintain that really the translation would be Adam and Eve. And somebody just got a little bit lazy on this with the titles. Regardless, can we just talk about how absolutely corny Adam and Eve look all the time. You want me to believe these two founded the human race? I'm sorry, no. I don't see these two having the wits to build a shelter to get it out of the rain. There's nothing there. These glassy-eyed fucking nobodies. Adam with his curly beard. Get out of here. And Jonas is standing there being talked to by Martha. And she says, we are all simply fractions of an infinite whole. And she sort of, as this continues to go on, because this like conversation between the two of them is broken into pieces and sort of peppered throughout this episode. And it becomes clear that she's trying to explain to Jonas that you and Martha are not going to work out. That's not how this works. In an attempt to get him to stop wasting his time, even though she knows that he's not ever going to stop doing that. But it seems that she believes by the end of this episode that his Martha, which is what she calls the one from his universe, his Martha has to die so that everyone else can live. And I really want to know how she drew that conclusion. I am super curious why it's his Martha that has to die and not her. Like, is that based on anything? Or is she just like, well, I mean, I know I'm not the one that's going to die. I'm sure fucking not volunteering. But I'm starting to reach critical limit with mysterious figures who live in echoing, sinister, cavernous homes with not quite enough candlelight and gloomy shadows and giant portraits of old paintings and fucking marble columns and shit. You know, y'all just take yourselves too goddamn seriously, kids. Just get a fucking apartment like the rest of us, okay? How about you just have a 1-bedroom uptown somewhere and you don't do this every time? It's very predictable. It's not impressive anymore. We're all just very bored of it. We need to see your little kitchen island that doubles as a breakfast bar and your television and the fucking dirty dishes from how you ate breakfast in front of the TV this morning. Stop it. I'm tired of it. She's out here with this floor length, like fucking long sleeve turtleneck gown, like the specter of death. And I'm just take a deep damn breath and be like, here we go again with another one of these oldies who thinks that they know. You don't know anything. Shut up. Nobody knows anything. You and fucking Adam go off into the sunset together then. Into the radioactive sunset. I feel like I would be a lot more receptive to Martha in this scene if Adam had not gotten so entirely played out in my mind. Because Adam, I mean, no. I draw the line. I'm done with that motherfucker. I really should be done with Jonas as well, but I still have this like little flare of hope that Jonas doesn't have to turn into Adam, which it seems pretty clear that this show is digging in on the future is what it is and you don't change it. And even if you try to change it, that's what actually causes it to happen kind of thing. Nevertheless, I am doing the Jonas and Martha thing where I still try and hope that it doesn't turn out exactly as it looks like it will. Because there is an element of feeling like, well, we have to have free will, right? Like there has to be. And Martha is obviously not of the opinion that there has to be free will. She's basically like, there has to. Who says? You've seen how this all has worked and it's all gone according to the way it's been told to you that it's going to go. And there's a reason why we know exactly what's going to happen and we've been right every time. 'Cause free will's not a thing. And I will say about this the same thing that I said to Rashawn when I was covering The Leftovers, which is there comes a point where if you believe that, what are you doing trying to tell anybody what to do? She's over here evidently ordering dudes to go around in the past and collect information and shit for her. Why? If you think things are just going to happen the way they happen, go ahead and just let them happen then, and like give up the ghost and just merge with as one with the universe and stop attempting to control anything. But you can't, because that's sort of the point of being alive, right? So how about you stop looking down your fucking nose at everybody else attempting to make a change in the circumstances surrounding them when you are also attempting to do that, and yet you try and act like it's different in your case. Because why? Because you have an echoing, shadowy hall to stand in while you do it? Get the fuck over yourself. Just, irritated. So she is coming right up in his face. Do you remember what you said to me under the bridge? The light, the woods. And she is saying essentially that she and Jonas are like two opposite ends of a spectrum. She says that, you know, he is the dark and she is the light. And I found that odd. I don't really know why she seems to think that they are opposites. I guess it's supposed to be that her belief that there isn't really free will versus Adam thinking that they can actually change things in her mind makes them totally different people. But, I mean, as somebody who can see how the two of them operate, they seem really fucking similar to me, so I don't know. But yeah, they start talking about that glitch in the Matrix thing. And she says, you want to know why you're here. To save them. And she says this as she's looking at Adam and Eve, and I was like, straight up, guys. Is he going back in time to Adam and Eve? What? I am not kidding. I really was like, does he have to stop her from eating the apple? Is that what we're doing? Are we really like, what? That's not what she meant. She says to save all their lives and mine. And then we cut to the police station in Martha's version of the world. So, all of that to say, I'm sorry, everyone, about how bad I am at covering this show. I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. But oh my God. So, Ulrich is standing in front of everybody trying to explain the situation with finding his brother's body from fucking, 33 years ago? And he can barely get through his speech here without completely dissolving into uncontrollable sobbing. And Charlotte is obviously having a hard time watching him be in this much pain, and gets up as if to just embrace him in front of everybody, and just barely catches herself. And I was just like, oh, girl, this is not the time. What are you doing? Get a hold of yourself. And she asks Waller to come up and finish doing the briefing for everybody as she leads Ulrich out and asks him how, like, what is going on? You need to go home. And he essentially is like, go home? Are you kidding me? My brother has been missing for 33 years. We finally just fucking found him. And all I did for so much of my life was try and figure out what could have happened to him. And now here his body is. I've got clues to work on. I'm not going home right now. And explains that he became a policeman because regarding his brother's disappearance, it seemed to him the police made every single possible mistake. And then he tells Charlotte that he can't see her anymore and bails. And honestly, Charlotte takes it pretty well. Like, Because Charlotte is a goddamn adult. Look, she's sleeping with Ulrich, which is immediately a strike against her in terms of her judgment, because Ulrich, I understand his appeal. I've said that. I get it. But, like, really, ladies, holy shit. And all that said, I do think... I really do wish that she and Peter could just get it together in terms of their relationship and talk with one another and, like, just divorce and be happier, because they are both obviously so trapped, and I just hate watching it, because they are both decent human beings. They could do okay if they just didn't cling to this shambles of a marriage. Anyway, I just like the fact that when he walks out after telling her he can't do this anymore, she doesn't say anything to him. She doesn't chase after him. She doesn't burst into tears. There's nothing about her that is desperate or clinging or trying to make this situation about her. And in that way, she is just so deeply different to Hannah. She understands, even if she doesn't, if she hasn't gone through this kind of thing, she understands that he's going through some shit right now, and that whatever's been happening with her is going to take a back seat. And maybe if things get figured out and calm down, they can revisit this. But I just like the fact that she doesn't pester him. She's not sort of after him. And it's a shame to me that Hannah figures out about the two of them now just as that shit ends. So she's about to get some retribution for some shit that's over and done with, And I just, And also, look, I'm just going to talk about Hannah real quick, because I have said before, I really do hate her so much. I hate her so much. She's just such a petty bitch. And she's so... the fact that she would decide, oh yeah, I want to ruin Charlotte. Why in the fuck do you think it's Charlotte that's the problem, bitch? You are pregnant by a dude who cheated on his wife with you. And now he's cheating on you with somebody else. It looks like, based on the pattern here, that maybe the guy's just somebody who cheats. And maybe he would do that whether it was Charlotte or some other bitch who strayed into his path. You destroy Charlotte, somebody else moves in on the block. Guess what? I don't understand the logic. She's acting like, oh yeah, she probably stole him away from me with... He does not need to be stolen away. Ulrich is just a person who enjoys getting what he doesn't think he should be allowed to have. He is just a fucking giant child. He's like a 6-year-old who you tell him that he isn't allowed to have ice cream until after dinner. And then you go to the bathroom and you come in the kitchen and he's climbed on the step stool to get to the fucking freezer and half into a bucket of Haagen-Dazs. That's Ulrich. He's not the issue. And the fact that you don't see that is so unutterably pathetic. You two fucking deserve each other. I swear to God. I'm like remembering the scene where he's gone back in time and is in the asylum and she comes to visit him and then says she doesn't know who he is and just fucking leaves him there. The two of them are perfect for each other. 100%. Anyway. All right, let's talk about the weirdness in 1888. So, Jonas is super, super suspicious of Martha. I still don't really understand exactly why. And it turns out that there's a good reason why. Like, we find out that she is working with Adam. So, his suspicions are founded in what we discover is fact, but I don't really understand where he is getting his suspicions from here. Does he have an inkling that Adam begins to work with her at some point? Like, did he know about that? or what? I just don't really understand where the origin of this suspicion is for him. And so his aggression towards her just kept on feeling like it was coming out of nowhere to me, and I just didn't understand it. And Bartoz gets in his face here and is like, admit to us that this apparatus doesn't fucking work, that you don't know what you're doing, that you knew what would happen and you told us none of it. And Jonas says, you got to see that she's using you. That's not Martha. She's dead. Nobody comes back from the dead. And then Bartoz says, oh yeah, she's dead. Hey, how'd that happen? Do you want to tell us? Do you want to tell us? And I totally cackled because I didn't even fucking think of it. Because I keep, like I said, distancing each version of each person from their older selves. But this dude knows that he becomes Adam, and he knows that Adam shot her. So he knows that he's the one who killed her this whole time. Which just frankly, I don't know how I didn't put that together. There's too many twisty turnies, and I can't keep track of them all. And when he said that shit, I just went, oh, good question, out loud, alone in my living room. And Jonas looks at him, and then that bitch runs out the door. He bails. He has nothing to say. And honestly, I'm so sick of him. Good, run. And Bartoz chases him outside. They basically get in a fist fight in the rain. It is hilarious. The two of them have been needing to get in a fist fight for ages anyway. And I'm glad that they're finally like duking it out. But I really do like, is that the thing that's like making him so worried about her? Does he feel like this version of Martha has to be sort of like out to get him because maybe she knows that he kills her in this version? Like, is that where his suspicion comes from? I don't really get it. I don't know. So then we have young Jonas talking to old Martha and her asking, why can't you let her go? You know that you can't be together. And there is an invisible ribbon that for eternity binds you. Adam tried to sever it, but it's impossible. And I really want this to matter more to me. I feel a little bit bad about it because it feels like what we're trying to do here plot-wise is make it so that there is this love that transcends time and space, and they will always attempt to find each other. And I just don't really care about the two of them enough for this to matter super much to me. I find the emphasis on this to be like odd in this moment with her especially. She pulls out the saint medal that he had given to her and says, bound in eternity in repeating deja vu. And he says, what are you saying? What do you want? Why won't you just tell me why I'm really here? And she says, you have seen what you will do, what Adam will do. If you want to save your Martha, you have to choose the side of light. And you must make me what you see I've become. What? I don't know what that means. How does he make her anything? Then he begins to just yell in her face about obligations and that he doesn't he's sick of people basically telling him what he has to do, which, frankly, yeah, that makes sense. Because he does sort of just feel like this errand boy at this point. And she says, then figure out what you want. Should she live? Tell me. You're Martha. And this is evidently a trick question, because as we find out later, she does not believe that if Martha lives, everybody else also gets to live. So this is clearly some kind of test. Michael says, I still wish people in this town owned umbrellas. You know, it is a very rainy town, and I have seen nary a single umbrella. That's true. Maybe that's one of those things where people just get so used to being wet all the time that it doesn't even affect them anymore. You know? They're just like, oh yeah, I don't know, it's weather. It's how this happens sometimes. So then we have this scene with Ulrich that leads to something really interesting a little bit later on. If anybody remembers, the brother of Eric that exists in this universe, remind me. But this is the kid that Martha had been dating. And the conversation here with just her, Ulrich, and Magnus leads to the scene later on. So I gotta tell you guys, Magnus in this scene with Ulrich is everything. I fucking loved it. Magnus has had it and is not interested in entertaining this motherfucker any longer than absolutely fucking necessary. And he is so ready to just knock this man on his ass on the way out the door. He comes down when he hears, like, because she says something about how, I think he's asleep. And Ulrich is asking her, tell me the truth, what really happened. She's like, I told you the truth. And he implies that because what she's saying is so loony, obviously, she must have been on drugs. She, for her part, can't believe that this is what he is assuming and looks really hurt. And as she's in the middle of saying, I meant everything I said, Magnus comes downstairs. And he says, oh, Killian, that's the guy's name. Did Killian give you anything? And at this, she folds her arms and doesn't answer. And Magnus comes up behind him and he says to Magnus, come on, what did you take? And Magnus's response is simply, what is this shit? Playing the concerned father all of a sudden? You usually don't give a shit what we do. And I will say, Ulrich wilts. When he says playing the concerned father all of a sudden, Ulrich's whole stance kind of shrinks back and he like drops eye contact. And I was like, fuck yes, right, correct. Everything about this scene just made me so happy. Magnus, he has been one of those that like, I understood the appeal, but he wasn't really for me. And now in this scene, I'm like, no, Magnus can get it. Like, damn. And Martha tries to step in and talk about, we heard this noise, the caves, we went in the bunker, there was nothing. And then he was lying there. And Ulrich stands there saying nothing. And finally Magnus says, is that it? Mom gets here soon. I think you'd better get out. And he gets in his face. He steps forward at him. But it was nice of you to drop by and see how we're doing. Oh, he holds the eye contact. He holds it, guys. And the second that Ulrich reaches up like he's going to touch his face and be all fucking affectionate, he steps back and is like, I don't think so. And Ulrich just leaves. And honestly, fuck him. Good for you, Magnus. It must be a really weird experience for parents to hit a moment where they realize that their kid is the one that's in the right in this situation and can hold them accountable. Like, the tables have turned enough, the kid's old enough and has a like well-developed sense of ethics enough that in this moment, they do not have any sort of upper hand at all. It has to be a really strange feeling. And you just see it. Magnus is the head of the family here in this scene. And Ulrich is the fucking has-been who walked away and nobody gives a shit anymore. And speaking of nobody giving a shit, then we cut to Hannah, who is coming into the station, and she's bringing brownies to Ulrich. And she asks Waller and Charlotte where he is. And Charlotte says, I thought he went home. And here goes her fucking spidey sense. Because she takes a look at Charlotte and says, you look so different. Did you get a haircut? And Charlotte looks at her, not seeming to get what it is that Hannah's putting together here. And Hannah sort of smirks and gives her a hug and takes a deep whiff in the creepy sort of way that she do, and can tell, apparently, that there's Ulrich on her. I didn't think that the two of them had contact in this day, but evidently there's enough for her to tell, or else, no matter what, she would have assumed that was what was going on either way. I'm sorry if you guys can hear that clicking. I don't know what that is. It sounds like somebody like smacking pieces of metal together outside. And this is when she goes into the office of Alexander and shows him the envelope that contained all of his secret information, and tells him that she wants him to destroy Charlotte and make sure that she has nothing left. Do you guys hear that? What the fuck is that? It's driving me nuts. Ms. T says, I thought she smelled Charlotte and Ulrich's sweatshirt in an earlier episode. Oh, so maybe she's smelling a familiar smell in Charlotte and not smelling a familiar smell in Ulrich on Charlotte. Okay, I see what you're saying. That makes sense. So when I said that the whole thing with Ulrich, and Martha was interesting, the scene with Killian, to me, is really compelling because Killian's in an odd position here, being a character that didn't exist in Jonas's timeline at all. And when she goes to see him, there's a real frigidity between the two of them. And it turns out that her father accused Killian of having put something in her drink, of having dosed her with something. And because of that, he wound up getting kicked out of his dorm, which is pretty incredibly fucked up. Like the idea that not only would Ulrich assume that his kids are just lying about having taken a drug in something that is this serious. They came upon a body. You don't think that they're going to, come on, dude. But also that he would disregard his daughter's assertion so completely that he would be willing to ruin this kid's situation for him with a completely unsubstantiated claim. Basically, Ulrich is doing something that feels weirdly similar to what Hannah did to him. And Killian is holding Martha a little bit responsible for this, and he says that he knew she was only seeing him in order to stick it to her parents, because everybody just sees him as trailer trash no matter what it is he manages to accomplish, and they will always point the finger at him. And I thought that added a really interesting dimension to everything, because there isn't another character in this show who has felt like they come from a vastly different economic background, and adding that flavor into the mix just feels like pretty appropriate to me. And Martha seems angry with him for making this accusation, but she doesn't deny it either. And I couldn't tell if she just was like, you know what, I'm not going to bother denying it because it's offensive, and what's the point? Or if she's like, I can't believe that this is the shit that he's going to bring up right now. We found a body, for Christ's sake. It could be either, but I feel like he may have nailed it. I think. I don't want to believe that she would do that, but also she's a kid and kids do stupid shit. And I find his like presence in the story to be interesting, that he is like still part of everything, despite the fact that maybe this is his goodbye. You know, maybe he isn't part of everything after this, but I wonder if, because he doesn't exist on another timeline, if he's like a bit of a linchpin for something else, or if there's anything really particularly significant about him. So let's see. She goes to, older Martha goes, she needs to see her future to understand what must be done. She will follow you. And then we, see Jonas going to her after she goes and sees Killian, fucking really creepily approaching her in the dead of night in the woods. Like, look, I get it. You have to take her to the caves and they're in the woods and everything, but it's just so creepy. And he leads her through the Sigmundus portal, and they wind up in a totally different version. I don't know if this is of Winden, if like you can even call it that anymore, but it's basically a desert. There is not a living thing to be seen. It's just empty sand and rock. And middle-aged Martha is there to greet them. And I have no idea. Kids, just be honest. I don't know. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this means. I don't know what to say about it. That is what happened. Moving on. The whole thing with Martha back in 1888 is that because Jonas doesn't trust her, she sets him up and says, "You don't trust me. Allow me to do something to earn your trust." And she goes into the woods and digs up that little time travel dealie that she used to get here. And there is a single orb full of the radioactive material in it left. And she gives it to him and says, basically, this is all I have to get back to my world, but I'm giving it to you to indicate that she is indeed trustworthy. But when he attempts to use it for his experiment, the power on this system goes out before the substance can resolve into a complete sphere. And I couldn't tell what exactly happened here. If it's simply because Adam says something to her when she goes back in time, or forward in time, I guess, when she goes back to Adam, about how I always was too gullible. So is it maybe not actually the substance that he thought it was? Is it not enough of it quite to do what it needs to do? Or did she taint it somehow so that it wouldn't work? Or did he think that the machine he built had like adequate electrical charge to it and it didn't? Because it's obvious that whatever it is that didn't work out, he seems to blame her and seems to think that she somehow sabotaged him. But I couldn't understand exactly what had happened to cause that feeling in him. When they go and look at the like substance that's in the bowl, Francesca says, "Where's Martha?" And that seems to be all it is that makes him realize, like, oh shit. But the like substance in the bowl is putting out like tiny little feeble feelers in a way that I feel like is meant to suggest he's not going to be able to try this again. This was like a one-time deal and it failed and that's it. And then we see her running back up to her room and getting the thing started and disappearing in just seconds before he opens her bedroom door and finds it empty. And when she goes back and Adam asks her, did you give it to him? And she nods. He says, I always was too gullible, but you did the right thing. Why? Is this his attempt to sever the ribbon that old Martha was telling him about? Or like, is he trying to, I just don't understand exactly what's happening here. Michael says, I didn't understand how the black orb was sabotaged either, but if nothing else, it was a ploy for her to escape. I mean, it was, but like, she could have escaped at any time, I would have thought. If she has this thing in the woods, I mean, she could have gone. Is it supposed to be that she's like constantly under watch and surveillance? I guess I just didn't really get that sense, but maybe I'm supposed to think that. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I'm just going to say I don't know until I run out of time. I only have 3.5 minutes left, so I guess that's fine. I haven't gotten a chance to talk at all about Charlotte's discovery of the penny on the red thread that she finds in the bunker. And she goes to Peter to talk about it. And Peter is sitting very close to this young man in a pew in the church when she comes in. And she has a real expression on her face when she sees him. There is a sense to me of her feeling that there was something inappropriate going on here, or at least a vibe. This is one of those things that it is really difficult to put your finger on. But I will say that my father was a minister when he was older. I was probably like 18. And there was a gorgeous young man who would come to fellowship with him. And the sexual tension between the two of them, you could cut with a fucking knife. It was lunacy. And there was nothing inappropriate being said, nothing inappropriate being done, but you just fucking knew the moment you stepped into the room, there was something happening right there. And this reminded me so much of that. And as a young teenage girl, it was extremely odd because I think that the young man was bisexual, because there were occasions when he was waiting for my father and he would like kind of come on to me. Like I said, he was beautiful. So I would be very confused and just kind of be like, I don't have a sense of what's happening here. And I don't know if this kid is supposed to be somebody familiar to me that he was talking to. He kind of like has the reddish look like of Killian, but I don't think so. And the way that Peter reacts when she comes in and says, what are you doing here? Even though there's nothing going on. Ew, yikes. And the thing is, Charlotte's already having an affair. Like, the two of them just need to get it together. Jesus. And she asks him about where his father was, because she has this penny that she deeply recognizes. And they get interrupted by a phone call from the station because evidently his father has gone in to confess to the murder. But then he holds up his own penny with the thread. And Charlotte looks at hers and is really confused. She's like, I assume, wait, what? Meanwhile, Ulrich decides to barrel in and grab him and shake him. And all of a sudden that jogs his memory. And Helga begins to realize that Ulrich is the guy who beat him when he was a kid. And it's like, oh my God, it's you. You're still alive. Which is a really odd moment to see it. Like, I couldn't understand it in the show, because we see him kind of get in Helga's face before we know what happened. But now we already know. So seeing this moment, it's a similar thing to the one when he was in his hospital bed. And that's sort of where things are left, is like Charlotte had seemed pretty sure that Helga was the one responsible. But then seeing the fact that he has his own penny on a thread, it kind of blows a big hole in everything. And he's not explaining what he did either. It seems that he's confessing, but all he's doing is saying over and over again, I killed the child. And they are trying to get him to like commit to which child. What did you do? How did you, and he's just repeating that over and over again. So I'm super curious where that winds up going, because I don't really know if this is something like part of a plan, or if this is sort of him like cracking under pressure as he gets older and he gets more confused about what's going on. I don't know. But yeah, so I feel like I've talked about everything this episode, and I'm kind of like jumping around on the timeline to double check. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I've covered everything here. And this desert version of everything, I'm real curious about what that's going to look like. So, but yeah, like I said, I really need these like supervillains to tone it down a little bit and be a bit more chill, if that is possible. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for hanging out with me and listening. Thank you to Michael again for commissioning this episode. Apologies again for just being all over the place when I talk about this, but I just don't really know how else to handle it. And I will be seeing you again soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.